Charlie Morton struggles with command on Monday night, issuing 5 walks. The bullpen isn't able to bail out the starter this time around, and it leaves the Braves comeback just short. We'll discuss all that, and also what's up with the slow start for Ronald Acuña Jr. We'll get into all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jacob Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop of All. Check out the podcast at LockedOn_Braves. Also, make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. We're a little under 50 subscribers to 10,000. You can help me get there by hitting the thumbs up on that video. If you're listening on the audio version, thank you so much for your support as well. Make sure you leave me a 5-star review. And big shout out to all my everydayers out there. I got a lot of you commenting on the comment section on YouTube. I appreciate that. I'm reading all of those. Thank you so much for sending those in. Continue to let me know if you're an everydayer here at Locked On Braves. Today's podcast, we'll get into Monday's game. The rough start for Charlie Morton. Bullpen isn't able to hold on this time, and the offense comeback falls just short. We'll get into our Taco Tuesday segment, talking about Ronald Acuña Jr. and his slow start. We'll react to Hank Aaron Celebration Day as well on Monday. A lot to get into on today's episode, and this episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Let's jump into it, and let's get into Monday's game. You had Charlie Morton on the mound going up against Julio Teheran, a matchup that on paper you would think heavily favors the Atlanta Braves, especially a Mets offense that coming into this game at least was really struggling so far this year to get going, especially their top hitters, Lindor and Alonso, who they still continue to not really do much in this series, but Brandon Nimmo had a huge game for the Mets, drove in 5 of their 8 runs. We'll get into that. But let's start with Charlie Morton, coming off a great start that he had his first time out. Not so much this time. 5 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 5 walks, 4 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, and 1 big 3-run homer. And I thought Charlie Morton looked pretty good early on. Those first couple of innings there, I thought the command looked good. He was keeping the hitters off balance. He looked like vintage Charlie Morton. But as we've seen throughout the last couple of years with Charlie Morton, when he loses that command, it can go really, really quickly. And the big issue that he had 2 years ago, and something he really cut down on and did a much better job of last year, was following up the walks, the hit batters with 2 3-run homers. And that's really what plagued him and did him in on Monday night. It was really the inning he walked the number 8, the number 9 batter, gave up a 3-run home run to Brandon Nimmo that quickly erased what was a 4-0 lead for the Braves and ultimately became a tie ball game after that. And again, the command for Charlie Morton, 5 walks on the night, is just unacceptable. You know you can't do that against this Mets lineup. As struggling as they are, they still give you professional at-bats out there. It's what they do. We've seen it the past 3 years. You know what this Mets offense is all about. They're going to foul off tough pitches. They're going to put the ball in play most of the time. You have to be able to continue to throw them quality strikes. If you do so, you can get through this lineup and you can shut them down. But Charlie Morton just wasn't able to consistently do that throughout this start. And if you want to look back at this game, we'll talk about the offense and the bullpen not being able to get it done. But you want to look at one moment in this game that really turned things in the favor of the Mets. It's Charlie Morton walking the number 8 and number 9 batters. We can talk about the strike zone, which didn't really seem to heavily favor the Braves or favor the Braves at all. And you can talk about, the bullpen giving up some runs in this one, which we will discuss. But if there's one singular point in this game you can look to and say, this is why we lost on Monday, it's Charlie Morton walking the 8 and 9 hole hitters before getting to Brandon Nimmo, who was having a rough start to his year. He decided to break out and overcome all that in one game against the Atlanta Braves. 4 hits, 2 home runs, 5 runs batted in. I mentioned already, huge night for Brandon Nimmo at the plate. And I mentioned that Mets lineup, 22 foul balls off of Morton. It's the same thing for a while now with this Mets offense. You know what they're going to do. Just 11 whiffs on 49 swings for Charlie Morton. Again, they don't swing and miss a lot. They're going to put the ball in play, foul off some tough pitches. You gotta pitch better. Bottom line in this game, Charlie Morton has to be better. He has to pitch better, especially your team gives you a 4-0 lead against Julio Teheran early on. you have to do a better job of shutting things down. And it all comes back to the command and comes back to the walks. Now, the bullpen, they did slip up in this one a little bit, gave up a pair of home runs. AJ Minter gave up a home run. It's a fastball right down the middle. And really, both the home runs given up by the relievers. It was a fastball down the middle from AJ Minter. It was a curveball right down the middle from Pierce Johnson. Again, as much as this Mets lineup is struggling, you throw pitches like that to big league hitters, more often than not, they're going to make you pay. Outside of that pitch that AJ Minter threw down the middle there, I thought the stuff looked really, really good from AJ Minter. He just made a mistake and he paid for it, and that tied the ball game back up at 5 apiece. Pierce Johnson, a little surprised they kind of went with him after he closed things out on Sunday, but I know Joe Jimenez pitched a lot here recently as well. It's not that I don't trust Pierce Johnson to get it done, just thought it was a little bit of a strange move after he pitched the night before and closed out the game. But he made a mistake, curveball right down the middle, got absolutely blasted by DJ Stewart there. But what really hurt the Braves here is the add-on run. After the home run, you figure, okay, settle down, get out of this inning right there, be fine, let the Braves offense go to work. But it was that add-on run, that inning, that ultimately decided this game, with the Mets winning by just 1 run. And that was Jesse Chavez, who came in, who has been fantastic for the Braves, but he did allow that inherited runner to score with 2 outs, and it ultimately ended up being a big run. The offense in this game, look, they did their job. They scored their runs. They did what they were supposed to do, just came up a run short. And in that 9th inning, it still pains me. I see it all over social media this morning already. The Marcell Ozuna hit, I thought it had a chance. I did think it got down on the barrel a little bit, but he's so strong. You just figure he's going to muscle that out. It's one of those balls that I know me and Grant have been talking about on the postcast, that come summertime, those balls are going to fly out of here. Even the Travis d'Arnaud hit. I mean, the way this offense is going, especially in that stadium, you feel like they're always going to come back. And when Travis d'Arnaud hit that ball, I just assumed this is going to be in the gap. It's going to tie the game, and the Braves are going to have a chance to win it. But it just went far enough over into right field that Marte could get to it there to end the game. So they had some really good chances there. And fortunes were a little bit on their side, as the Mets had 3 of their best relievers, including Edwin Diaz, unavailable for this game. So the Braves had some chances to get to the bottom part of the Mets bullpen and just couldn't get enough. But again, this comes down to pitching. It comes down to Charlie Morton, the command issues, the bullpen not able to execute enough. And I'm not worried about the bullpen at all. They've been outstanding. It was just a bit of an off night for them, and you can't expect them to be perfect in all year long as they were over the weekend series. But the offense, you want to look at one positive. They just continually, they're never out of a game with this offense, is what Snickers says all the time. And they showed that again on Monday night, trying to make a late comeback once again. I talked about that Ozuna hit in the 9th. It went 374 feet. It needed to go 375. It would have been out in 24 of 30 stadiums. And the ball Travis d'Arnaud hit 101.2 miles per hour off the bat, had an expected batting average of 620. So some really, really close calls there. Some tough breaks by the umpire as well. One to Ozuna, a strike 3 call on a pitch that was 5-6 inches below the zone. But the one that really gets me, and I'm not blaming this game on the umpires, but the one that gets me is the one to Riley. It's a first pitch with bases loaded. It maybe clips the top of the strike zone, and he calls it a strike, and all of a sudden Riley's behind 0-1. He chases the slider. All of a sudden he's down 0-2, and that at bat was just kind of gone from the beginning. And the umpire, who for the most part I think did a decent job, but he was mostly calling strikes at the bottom of the zone and just below the bottom of the zone pretty consistently. If you're going to do that, you can't then give the pitcher the top of the zone, just above the top of the zone. So the pitch to Riley, in my mind, if you're going to look at one call from this umpire, that obviously the Ozuna one's just inexcusable, that can't happen. But the one to Riley in that spot with the bases loaded, it really dictated a lot of that at bat. But again, the Braves lost because Charlie Morton decided to walk the 8 and 9 batter. He didn't decide to, but he did. And that's just a problem with Charlie Morton. It doesn't really matter who he's facing in the order. It's just sometimes when he loses that command, it's hard for him to get it back really quickly. And that ultimately lost this game for the Atlanta Braves. Next, I want to move our conversation to Ronald Acuña Jr. He's off to a slow start. I'm getting a lot of questions. There's a lot of talk about what's going on with Ronald. Is he hurt? Is he in a slump? What is going on? What changes are we seeing with Ronald Acuña Jr. that have him off to a pretty slow start? We'll discuss all of that here next. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets, and you know what? You don't when you use GameTime. GameTime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And GameTime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. In fact, save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and events near you. I can attest to this. I've used GameTime to buy my last, I want to say 3 or 4 tickets that I've gone to for Braves games. The process is simple. It's very easy. One of the two of the features that I really love about the GameTime app, one is the view from your seat. You know exactly what you're going to be looking at before you buy the ticket. I don't ever buy tickets without knowing what my view is going to look like. And something I just really appreciate, they give you all-in prices up front. I can't stand some of those other ticketing websites where you think you got a good deal, you get to the checkout, and all these fees and everything comes in, raising up the price. GameTime doesn't do that. They tell you the price, all-in price, up front. They also have their GameTime guarantee, which means you'll get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. And for a limited time, all users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the GameTime app with the code FIRSTPITCH. That's code FIRSTPITCH, FIRSTPITCH, for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code First Pitch for $20 off order of $150. Or if you're a first-time user of GameTime, you can use our code Locked On for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN all day and you're constantly having to mute it or change the volume and turn it down because all they do is yell nonsense all day long? If you're looking for a better alternative, try our free 24/7 sports streaming channel program called Locked On Sports Today. They bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. A part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, this week, kind of switching the schedule around a little bit. On Wednesday, I'll take you around the league, obviously recap Tuesday's game. And then on Thursday, we will have a podcast later in the day as we're going to wait till after the finale between the Mets and the Braves. And I'll have Ryan Finkelstein on from Locked On Mets, and we'll talk about everything happening in that series. All right, it is our Taco Tuesday segment where I talk about what's going on in Braves country. What is Braves country talking about? And a lot of people are really concerned about the slow start for Ronald Acuña Jr. And maybe they're not to panic worry mode quite yet, as it is a very small sample size, but we didn't see a lot of this from Acuña last year where, sure, there were some stretches where, he may be down a little bit, but the power is just not there right now. Even going to spring training, didn't hit a home run in spring training. He hasn't hit a home run so far in the regular season. What is going on with Ronald Acuña Jr.? So I just want to touch on it, go through the analytics, what I'm seeing, and kind of give you my insight on Ronald Acuña. Right now, you look at his numbers, his slash line, 222, 317, 278 slugging for Ronald Acuña Jr. No home runs, 2 doubles, 6 walks to 13 strikeouts, 1 stolen base. And I look at one thing in that line. Obviously, the slugging percentage being below 400 even is just concerning for Acuña. But the one thing that really gets me is the strikeouts, 35.1% strikeout rate. One of the more amazing things about what Acuña did last year is that he cut his strikeout rate by 10%. I don't think all of a sudden it's going to go up 10% from what was his career norm before that of 24%. But that kind of tells me right off the bat, he's just not seeing the ball well right now. He's not picking things up well. Timing is a little off. When I see that huge strikeout rate from Acuña, who did such a fantastic job cutting it down last year, it tells me things are just a little off with him right now. He had 4 hits in his first 2 games, looked like Ronald Acuña Jr. He's had just 4 hits since then. Keep in mind, we are dealing with a very small sample size. We're talking 9 games and 36 at-bats right now. So there is no reason to panic or be worried, but I may give you some reasons to maybe have a little bit of concern with Acuña right now. Let's take a look at the StatCast data. And once again, we're dealing with small sample sizes here. Right now, he has a 45% hard hit rate. That's down 10% from last year. Still pretty solid hard hit rate, but it is down 10% from last year. 90.7% average exit velocity, down 4% from last year. Again, still pretty good, but certainly not close to where he was last season. This is one here that I think has a lot of people kind of concerned. A 4.3 degree launch angle. That's down 3 degrees from last year, which was down about 8 degrees from where his career norm is. And that's leading to obviously a lot of ground balls. A 60% ground ball rate for Ronald Acuña Jr. so far. It was 48% the last 2 years. He hasn't hit a ball yet that Baseball Savant categorizes as a fly ball. So he is getting either on top of everything or under everything for a pop-up, or obviously line drives are included in that. But for the most part, he's getting on top of the baseball with a 60% ground ball rate. This is one thing that's very concerning. Again, early on in a small sample size, he doesn't have a single barrel so far this year. He has not put a barrel on a baseball yet, at least as far as how Baseball Savant categorizes a barrel. Last year, he led the league with 86 barrels, and he doesn't have one yet through 9 games. Again, 9 games, not a huge sample size, but that is one that definitely sticks out to me. His expected batting average is even lower than his actual batting average. His XBA is 208. He had a 357 expected batting average last year. It was higher than his actual average. So that right there tells you he's not making a lot of great contact. His expected WOBA is just 292. It was 460 last year. Again, we're dealing with very little sample size here, but you can see the contact is just not, the quality of contact is just not what we expect from Ronald Acuña Jr. So the question is, what's happening? How concerned should we be? And as I kind of already alluded to, I'm not concerned, but I'm not going to tell you there shouldn't be a little bit of concern. I think part of it is he missed the time in spring training. He missed 2 weeks, but still he came back and he got 22 at-bats. Looked good in those at-bats. He had 7 hits, but still no home runs in spring training. They talked about it a lot on the telecast Monday, and I think they're spot on with what I think is the biggest reason for Acuña's slow start right now. I think it is just the timing. It seems off a little bit. He seems a little bit early on the breaking pitches, a little bit late on the fastballs. You look at the numbers, though, it would tell you the breaking stuff, the breaking pitches, the off-speed pitches are what he's struggling with the most. He's hitting 333 against fastballs, but with just a 228 expected batting average. More on that in a second. He's 1 for 8 against breaking pitches and 0 for 4 against off-speed pitches. We're still dealing with such a small sample size. We're talking about 12 pitches that he's put in play combined for breaking pitches and off-speed. But you look at the whiff rate on the fastball, it is 34.6%. It was just 17.3% all of last year. The whiff rate is 55.6% on sliders. Last year, it was just 26%. He doesn't have a hard hit yet on a slider. He had a hard hit rate of 56.9% last year against sliders. That tells me right there, he's caught in between and the timing is a little bit off. When you're seeing that high whiff rate on fastballs for Acuña, a high whiff rate on those sliders for him as well, it tells me he's just caught in between those 2 pitches right now. The other thing that maybe you can be a little bit concerned about is the knee still bothering him. He missed all that time in spring training because of the knee issues that creeped up once again after that rundown in spring training. These are the kinds of issues at the plate we saw for him in 2022 when he was coming back from that ACL surgery. So if you wanted to be concerned about something, I think that would be something to be concerned about. Is the knee actually still bothering him? Does he not fully trust it at this moment? Again, that's what we saw in 2022 with the lack of power. It's because he just didn't fully trust that knee. So if maybe that's the reason we're not seeing the power right now, is because that knee is still bothering him a little bit, or he's just thinking about it a little bit more. That to me would be a reason to be concerned. But everything we've been told so far is that he's fully healthy. It's given him no issues. He still seems to be running fast. Scored from first on Monday night on a situation where he almost caught Kellick running in front of him. We saw him run full speed to try to get to a ball in foul territory. So I really don't think that's the issue. So I tend to believe it's more just the timing. He's getting caught in between, and I think that will get corrected. I believe that will get corrected. And when it does, he's absolutely going to take off and be the Ronald Acuña Jr. we know. So everything I look at, like I said, the whip rate on the fastball and the slider, just seeing him a little bit early on off-speed pitches or breaking balls, a little bit late on the fastballs, just tell me that the timing just isn't there right now. He will get that corrected and he will go off. So there's no concern there. Like I said, if you wanted to have any type of concern, I think it would be that maybe the knee is still giving him some trouble, causing him some discomfort. But again, everything we've been told so far, that is not the case. He's 100% ready to go. So I really do think it just comes down to him being a little off at the plate right now, and he will get that corrected. He will get back to the MVP level we're accustomed to. And it's crazy. You look at this Braves offense right now, which once again leads baseball in pretty much everything, and yet the MVP hasn't gotten going yet. So I think that's a really good sign for the Braves. They have 14 home runs on the year. There's only 3 teams in the league with more than that, and all of them have played more games than the Braves, including the Padres and Dodgers, who obviously had the 2-game set in Korea. The Astros there was 16 and 11 games. But you look at OPS leaders for the Braves, they're having OPS of 891. The Dodgers are the second base at 811, and the only other team above 800 is the Milwaukee Brewers. So the Braves offense is getting it done right now, and they're getting it done without their best player playing at his best. And once that happens, this offense is just going to be even more dangerous and deadly. All right, next, turn our attention to Tuesday's matchup with Ronaldo Lopez, which has become a pretty big start for him right now with the Spencer Strider news. We'll discuss all that here next. Spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePick entry today. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members, and it's really easy and exciting to play. You can get in on the action for your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks has something for every fan out there, whether it be basketball, baseball, hockey, whatever it may be. PrizePicks has you covered for all your favorites out there. You want to look at PrizePicks today right there. You want to get in on your old friend Michael Soroka. They have him with 3 strikeouts, so you can pick if you think he'll have more than less than that. Ronaldo Lopez, they have him with 4.5 against the Mets, a team that doesn't strike out a lot, but you can go out on PrizePicks right now and pick more or less on that. And they have so much more, from total bases, first inning runs, hits, walks allowed, pitcher fantasy scores, all of that you can see on PrizePicks. And it really is that easy. Pick 2 to 6 players and pick more or less on the stats like we mentioned, like hits, strikeouts, all of that. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. One thing I did want to mention when recapping the game from Monday that I didn't talk about is it was the worst game we've seen so far from Jarred Kelenic. It's the first time I really saw him look like the Jarred Kelenic we saw in Seattle. Hopefully that's just a blip in the radar, but he looked a little bit lost at the plate on Monday. Had 3 strikeouts in there. They threw him some really good pitches inside that he just swung over the top of. So a tough game for him all around. But again, hopefully nothing too concerning right there. He's looked so good to begin the year. He still got on base in this one. Ronald and Kelenic were the only 2 that didn't get a hit in this game, and they combined for 3 walks in it and a couple of scored runs. So nothing to get too concerned about there, but I just did want to mention it because it's the first time where he just looked completely off at the plate and a little bit lost. News from the day, Framber Valdez for the Astros. He was scratched for some elbow discomfort as well, so we might have another pitcher going down there. As for Spencer Strider, he did have his second MRI done, but we're told we're not going to have results of that until the weekend. Not sure why it's going to take so long for those results, but don't drop them just yet on your fantasy team. We'll see what happens there and should have more news coming out later in the week. And then obviously the Braves and all of baseball were honoring Hank Aaron on Monday night, the 50th anniversary of 7-15. Obviously, a very special moment, not just in baseball, but nationally in our country as well. It is a huge moment for what it meant, civil rights and everything. It's one of my favorite moments. I have a picture on the wall behind me that you can't see anymore. It's of him rounding second base and those two teenagers coming out to congratulate him. I've always thought that was somewhat of a cool moment, even if they shouldn't have done it and it was a dumb thing to do. Hank Aaron talked about the fact that he didn't know what was going to happen in that moment with those kids running out there, and they were just there to congratulate him on the historic achievement that he had. Again, not just for baseball, but for our country as well. So it was great. I watched several baseball games every night after the kids go to bed, and every game I watched was celebrating Hank Aaron. I thought that was really, really cool. I thought the Braves did a great job as well on Monday. Moving our attention to Tuesday's matchup, it's Adrian Houser versus Ronaldo Lopez. And suddenly this becomes a really big spot for Ronaldo Lopez. You don't know who's going on Wednesday. You have Max Fried going on Thursday, who has struggled with command early on, and you cannot do that against this Mets lineup. So this start from Lopez becomes a really, really big one. Now, he was great his first time out. It was in cold weather against the White Sox. We saw Garrett Crochet absolutely dominating in that environment too. But I did think the location for Lopez was really, really good. And if he can continue to command it like that, I think he has a chance to have another good outing against the Mets. And the Braves really need it because Bryce Elder just isn't in line to come up right now. You do have Alan Winans, who maybe he's going to start on Wednesday. We'll see what happens there. Dylan Dodd, is ERA looks okay at AAA, but he's still giving up a lot of base runners. Darius Vines has been just okay. AJ Smith-Shawver did not look great in his first outing, and they were trying to keep his pitch count and workload down already to begin with. So the options right now, while there are plenty, they just don't seem to be ready at the moment for the Braves. And without knowing, really what's going to happen the rest of the series, and after losing game one, you're really counting on Lopez to come out and pitch a really good game. I think the bullpen will mostly be rested. Pierce Johnson would likely be the only one that's unavailable in this game. But really looking for Ronaldo Lopez to repeat what he did in Chicago, keep that command, that velocity. Would love to see it sit more 94, 95, 96 throughout this start. And good slider, mix in some more changeups as well. But it becomes a big start, not just for this series, but I think for the Braves going forward, who now with the injury to Strider are going to be counting on Lopez a little bit more. As for Adrian Houser, 5 innings, 3 hits, 3 walks, 1 earned, 3 strikeouts. His last time out against Detroit, his only time out so far this year. Not somebody that's going to strike you out. You know what Adrian Houser is at this point. He's a ground ball pitcher. He's going to try to mix things up with that sinker, four-seamer combination and get you on top of the baseball at a 60% ground ball rate, or 50% ground ball rate, rather. So that's what he's going to be looking to do. Hopefully the Braves can get to that. If you want to look for some optimism for Ronald Acuña Jr., as again, we look at very small sample size, the one pitch he's had some success against so far this year is the sinker, and Adrian Houser is going to throw it 50% of the time. So hopefully that'll help get Ronald back on track. And again, I do think he's very close. It's just the timing. All of that is off, but we have covered all that, so I'm not going to go back to it. But this is a matchup, again, on paper, that you feel like the Braves should win, need to win, even up this series, give them a chance to at least split it, although you would love to win this series at home against a struggling Mets team. Hopefully their offense hasn't decided to all of a sudden break out now in Atlanta here. But again, this outing really goes to Ronaldo Lopez for me, a situation where they really need him to even up this series, not knowing what's going on Wednesday. Max Fried struggles here early on. It's a big start for Ronaldo Lopez, and hopefully he can keep this Mets offense down. Hopefully the Braves offense can continue to do what they have done so much early on in the season, put up some big numbers, and the bullpen can hang on to it this time. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. I want to remind you again that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on the Amazon Fire TV app for the free Fire TV channels app. Also, later this week, again, we'll take a trip around the league on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, we'll talk with Ryan of Locked On Mets, recapping this Braves-Mets series, and on Friday, we'll have our mailbag episode as well. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.